Go. And start.
Ash and Zach are super smart. They went to college and learned a bunch of stuff. And Beau and Andrew didn't go to college because that's the way life goes sometimes. What happens when you put them together and you try to make them learn? Grab your friends, let's listen together on Get Dumped on an Info Dump podcast. Welcome to Get Dumped On, an Info Dump podcast. I am one of your hosts. My name is Andrew. There are three other people here. Zach, Ash, and Beau.
Hey.
This Info Dump podcast is where four friends get together and dump their special interest knowledge on the other three. Today, we have Zach is going to be doing a dump on us with a follow-up episode of the previous episode about tattoos, about Ötzi the Iceman, which, again, I want to name my child Ötzi the Iceman in full, because it's great.
Would their first name be Ötzi the Iceman, or would it be like first name Ötzi, middle name the Iceman?
It would be a share situation.
First name greatest.
Yeah, it'd be a share situation where they're just Ötzi the Iceman.
I love it. A good old-fashioned mononym.
Yeah, whatever that was. Yeah, I'm dumb, man. I don't know words. If words are over 2 syllables, I'm out.
Oh, yeah. That is a 3-syllable word. So
yeah, see, I know syllables.
You said the word
syllables. Yeah, never mind. That didn't make any sense.
Oh my God. It's just like a robot getting itself into a logic circuit, and then
the Turing test is happening in my own brain. Holy fuck!
Let's do a hard restart.
Holy cow!
Yeah, so I'm really excited because like when I was talking about tattoos last episode, and I was talking about Ötzi, I was like, okay, I'm not going to talk about any of this stuff because I really want to be able to get into in depth all the stuff because it's so cool. And so Zach, I'm so excited for you to take us there, and I'm going to be reminded of all the cool things that I had once known and then I forgot, and now I'm going to re-know right now.
So this is all about Ötzi, like 100%.
Yeah, I'm super stoked to do this. There's so much information about this guy that like I had to cut things out, and I still have 3 pages of notes.
Just
it's kind of bonkers.
Sometimes the sequel's not as good as the original. So
yeah. Well, okay, so Beau, just for the listeners' knowledge, just in case the person listening to this did not listen to the previous episode before this, within a span of time where they would still remember everything that happened, I would like to have Beau give us a recap on Ötzi the Iceman without help from the other two.
I'm just an Irish tattoo man. Walking in the mountains, oh no, here comes snow. I'm frozen. It's me, Ötzi, the Irish snowman.
You think he's Irish?
Holy fuck! Oh my God, that was incredible. Sell that to Broadway. Fucking, are you kidding me? That was amazing. Oh, I'm just an Irish.
He's not Irish. He's not Irish.
He is now. Holy shit.
No.
Oh, he's Italian, isn't he?
He's definitely, he's from New York, Beau. He's from New York. He's an Italian New York guy. Go.
Hey, I'm just walking here through the mountain. Got to keep the
He's Irish again.
Cool for my family. It's
Yes,
really cold
so he was
up here.
a natural mummy who was frozen. He had tattoos on his body. They were mostly, they think like medicinal in some way because they were small geometric tattoos. He had a bunch of them, just as a recap. And so now we're going to learn more about the man behind the tattoos.
Yeah, so I mean, I basically don't really talk about the tattoos any further because why bother? You gave them such a good treatment in the previous episode. So let's get going. Let's get started. So Ötzi, who we've all lovingly dubbed the Iceman, is the preserved body of a man from the Alps, dating back to the early Chalcolithic, which is the late Neolithic. The Chalcolithic is the Copper Age. It's just the funny Greek name for it. We can just call it the Copper Age from here on out. But Chalcolithic is a pretty fun word for me to say, at least.
Too many syllables.
Yeah, but it makes your mouth move in a fun way.
Chalcolithic.
Yeah.
Chalcolithic.
It's pretty fun. Chalcolithic. See, you got it.
Chalcolithic.
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 No, you got it.
We're all advancing. It's great.
Look at us go.
So the body was discovered in 1991 by a group of hikers in the Ötztal ranges, part of the Alps. It's at a point that's kind of right in the border between Italy and Austria, and that was actually a kind of
That's a long way from Ireland.
Yeah, pretty long way from Ireland, but
Almost like he wasn't Irish and had never been there, and the concept of Ireland wasn't probably a thing at all.
Oh,
yeah, there's also like
the first
Yet.
Irishman. That's crazy.
a lot of
That's where
Misleading our listeners.
Scorsese got that movie, The Irishman, from. Let's see. Go on.
okay.
Go on,
So,
go on. I lost track.
there was a dispute between Italy and Austria over which country owned his remains and like where they could make a museum like specifically to house him. And eventually it was decided that it was Italy, but like the area where he was found is a really sketchy border. Anyway, so he was discovered in 1991.
It wasn't Italy when he was alive.
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter. The concept of Italy is like even Italy as like a unified country is like less than 100 years old. And before that, it was just a bunch of unincorporated city-states that hated each other.
And if you remember from the last episode, Ötzi is 5,300 years old.
Yeah, essentially, Ötzi owns Italy.
Pretty much. They might as well make him the prime minister.
Yeah, like he came first. Like finders keepers, bro. Like he was there. It's clear he was there because he was frozen in ice. So
Exactly.
give it to him.
Yeah. So he was found emerging from a thawing glacier, 10,530 feet above sea level. Initially, the two hikers who found him contacted the cops because they thought it was somebody who had died relatively recently, sometime within the past couple of decades. And so the next day they came back. They went down into a town, and the next day they came back with a gendarme, like a local police constable.
Gendarme. Wow.
A gendarme.
What a fancy word.
It's basically a cop. And so together,
ACAB.
with the help of some other people, they tried to remove the body from the ice. They used ice axes and a jackhammer.
No, that's safe.
Yeah, unsurprisingly damaged him just a little.
At this point, were they were still operating under the assumption that it was somebody pretty recently?
Well, so it was pretty apparent pretty quickly that it was not a recent body once they took him out, because he had all he was wearing, all that was left on his body was a shoe, but it was a pretty old school shoe. But at this point also they found a lot of the artifacts that were at the burial site. Well, not burial site.
Oh, he wasn't wearing clothes at all? Or did the clothes like deteriorate or whatever?
They had come off of his body, basically.
Cool.
The naked
Buddy.
snowman.
It was probably like after he died, somebody came around and fiddled with it. No, but
Yo, Jesus Christ.
no,
Why are you laughing? That's gross.
yeah, it is gross.
Somebody came around and fiddled with me.
Basically what happened is that after he died, the body was trapped in the glacier, and it kind of slid down, like the glacier like slid down the mountain, and like the glacial forces kind of scattered everything around like a 100-foot area or so. I don't remember exactly how wide it was.
So you're saying that this sounds like a children's book, like Ötzi the Icy Snowman, he didn't have a belt. He slid down the ice and his pants fell off, and now 5,000 years later they found him naked.
Why do
He
you
did
think
have
that's
a
a
belt.
children's book?
He did
I
have
don't
a
know.
belt.
I don't fucking know.
Actually.
Oh, Ötzi was a snowman in Italy. He walked carefully and froze. So I got nothing. I lost it.
But I
had
love
it.
you so much. You tried. I get A+ for effort.
I liked
We'll
it.
have a song by the end. We'll have
No, we
developed a
won't.
perfect song.
Yeah,
by
I
the
think
end.
we will. I'll work on
Yeah.
the whole podcast. You keep talking. I want to work on a song.
All right, well, don't work on it to the point where you're not contributing to the podcast.
What'd you say? I was singing in my head.
So basically, they thought that it was a cold case, but
Someone say it.
Once-
Someone say it.
Okay.
Because he was
took-
frozen.
Okay, there it is. Okay.
yeah, because he was frozen.
Ba-ba-ba-bow, ba-ba-ba-bow.
What I have in my notes is, but once some scientists took a look at the body, they realized it was quite the cold case indeed.
Oh.
Did you write that? Did you write that?
Yes, that's what I wrote.
Cool. I loved it.
Oh, thank you. So because they found all this weird old stuff with the body, they contacted an archaeologist who took a look at it. And
Hey, this doesn't look right.
yeah, and was like, yeah, this is old as shit, dude. This is
all
like
fucked up.
fucking old as hell, dog.
You
Uh,
probably shouldn't have used a jackhammer.
Yeah.
They go to the guy and they're like, "Hey, like, check this out." The first thing he goes, "Did you fuckers jackhammer this thing? That's a jackhammer wound. I just know this."
Now, something's telling me that even if it didn't turn out to be the oldest known preserved body at the time, even if it was a relatively recent crime scene, wouldn't it be a bad idea to use a jackhammer anyway?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
put the
that's never your first thing you should use unless you're a fireman trying to get somebody out of an actively burning car, or that's it.
Yeah. So the archaeologist who was looking at it pretty much immediately was like, yeah, this is at least 4,000 years old. So they took some samples and sent them off for carbon dating, and the carbon dates came back with a range of 3,350 to 3,110 BCE, which would make it about 5,200, like between 5,100 and 5,300 years old, making it at the time the single oldest known preserved human remains, which
Heck
is
yeah.
pretty cool.
Did Ötzi live in those mountains? That's weird to me that they would be all the way up there
Oh, we're going to
with
talk about
We're
it.
gonna
little
talk
clothing
about
on.
it.
Okay.
This. Okay, so the whole BCE thing is why I really appreciate paleoanthropology, because we just use BP. We just use how many years ago was it?
Well, it was how many years? BP is how many years before 1950 was
Yeah, I know. And that's why it's dumb, because I don't care about 1950.
it? I mean,
No
you
one
could just
does.
argue that BCE is just based on an arbitrary division between BCE and CE that is.
It is. It is.
Well, it's before Common Era, right?
Mhm. So it's secularizing the BC AD thing, because BC means before Christ and AD means
Boo.
Anno Domini, which is like Latin. Fucking sucks.
I don't know. BCE, Common Era. I like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just like to say how many years ago it is, because then you don't have to think about it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's easier for me. I don't like minusing things and plussing things, dividing.
Yeah.
Oh, just
You
add
know.
like 2,000 years. It's like, oh my God, okay.
Okay, and let me get my graphing calculator out.
So he's 5,300 years ago is when he died. And so you know how carbon dating works? It's not really that important.
Yeah,
in
you
this
swipe right or
context.
left.
I
if
think
wanna
you explained that in a previous
exchange
podcast.
carbons.
Basically, for the listeners, in
Oh,
case
that
you're
was funny.
curious.
I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Basically, as you live, you accumulate carbon-14 isotopes within your body. And then once you die, those isotopes start to deteriorate at a constant rate. We know the rate that they deteriorate at, so we can measure the amount of carbon-14 that's left and use that to determine how long ago it started deteriorating. And it gets you really, really accurate results up to, I want to say, about 50,000 years old. The limitations of it is that it only works on like living material, it only works on organic material. You can't like date a rock or something with it.
Yeah. Okay, so it has to have some sort of like Ötzi was so well preserved that he still had those carbon 14s or whatever they were on their person.
So like you could date a really old bone, you could date a piece of wood, you could date like a seed, you could date anything like that. You wouldn't be able
Would
to
they
date
really
like
love you back if you date them?
it's really it depends on if it's a date like the fruit.
Oh, nice.
But so like if a bone is old enough that it turns into a fossil, for example, then that you can't carbon date that because because now it's entirely stone.
Yeah. Okay,
There are
that's
other
cool.
methods.
I actually
There are
didn't know
other
that, so
methods.
thank you for teaching me something right now.
You're welcome.
I'm
There's
learning.
a lot of
Damn it!
there's a lot of different. They're all called. It's called radiometric dating, and so there's a lot of different isotopes that we can measure the half-lives of to determine dates of things. And so there's like for older rocks, there's uranium deteriorates into lead, and so you can measure the ratio of uranium to lead in certain types of rocks to determine how long ago that rock formed. For example, there's a lot of stuff like that.
I would like to learn about
Science
Ötzi though.
is crazy.
Yeah. So, speaking of though, like isotopic studies and stuff like that, we can talk about how Ötzi's body has pretty much become the most well-studied individual person in history. Like any sort of test that you can think of has been done to this guy. He's had
He's popular.
CT scans, he's had MRIs, he's had X-rays, he's had isotopes taken from his body and studied carbon isotopes, nitrogen isotopes, strontium isotopes. Basically any sort of study that you can think of has probably been done on Ötzi. And so we know almost everything that there is to know about where he was from, where like what he ate, where he spent most of his life. And so he's a really interesting case to look at for what we can actually learn about the past, like using scientific methods, which is part of the reason why it's so interesting to talk about him.
Did he have food in his stomach when he was found?
Yeah, he did. We know what his last couple of meals were because of the food in his stomach. And
Hey, ba-ba-ba-bow.
Ba-ba-bow.
So, okay, if Beau, I'm sure Zach already knows this. I assume Ash already knows this. But what was Ötzi's final meal?
You know,
we're going to talk about that. That is a dumper chump later in the episode. So
leave it. Don't answer that question.
Boy, we're talking about it.
Let's go,
Andrew,
baby. Come on.
You do that all the time to me. You're like, ooh, this prompt of this thing. And I'm like, whoa. We're going to talk just
I'm sorry.
hold your horses,
I'm sorry
bucko.
I'm bringing my curiosity
you're
to the
just
table.
So excited, though. No, I love it.
Yeah,
I was
we love
going to
it.
say shoe as a joke. Though.
We'd love to see it. So
he ate his shoe because he only was found with one.
Because he had
that's
one.
funny.
Oh, my God.
Beau, God damn it. Fucking, this is why you're on the podcast. Good job. Good job. This is why we pay you the big bucks.
Thank you. And more, please.
So his body is being kept in cold storage at a museum it's basically his freezer that was specially made for him. It's he's kept at about 20 degrees Fahrenheit.
He's so wet.
We covered this last time, right? He's the wet mummy.
Yep. And he's wet. They spray him down.
And somebody stands next to him with a mop and they slap him every 20 minutes.
Oh, they spray him down every couple of days, basically to keep him iced over. And so
I'm going to say they slap him with a mop. That's my favorite part of that.
I want to just picture.
If you want to picture it in your head as a mummy being slapped with a mop, that is your prerogative. You're allowed to do that.
It's like a janitor, like in a high school uniform, like with a big mustache, and he's balding, and like he never ever talks to anybody, and all he just goes and he slaps with a mop.
Okay, I just need you to know, like you can think that, but I just need you to know that that's not true. And the person, if it's not an automated system that does it, then the person who gets to spray down Ötzi probably went to school for so many fucking years to be able to have the ability to be that close.
No. This guy didn't go to school. The only school that he went to was the janitor of the school that he worked for.
Yep.
For way too long. And then he got fired for an unknown reason. And then they hired him to slap Ötzi with a mop instead.
He was fiddling with the bodies.
Oh, God. Jesus Christ.
So basically, the museum where he lives gets, they say they get like 150 requests every year.
Lives.
Yeah, where he rests. They say that they get about 150 requests every year for people who want to do research projects on his body. And they
That's
evaluate.
less than I thought, I guess. They probably had a steep drop off.
They evaluate each request and decide whether or not it's worth like thawing him out, because that even as a process takes a couple of days for him to thaw out safely. And when I might be making that up. I don't have that written down how long it takes to thaw him.
Hey, fake news. Come on.
They have to do it very carefully. And whenever they do any studies on him, they have to do them quickly because his like method of preservation, like the way that he was preserved, is very reliant on the conditions where he was. And so,
yeah, remember with the Ice Queen, they didn't properly refrigerate the remains going from the site that they found it to where they were keeping it, and it deteriorated a lot in that short time.
Yeah, so he gets ripe, and you can actually tell that there's mold growing on him in various spots because of these initial, like the period in between when he was taken out of the ice and they got him in a freezer. He got a little moldy, and you can still see it in pictures of him. So let's start with the first true or false, dump or chump. Is this a dump or is this a chump? Based on reconstructions of what he was like at the time of his death, rather than what his current body state is, Ötzi had a magnificent top tier dumper, a big ol' fat ass.
He had a dump truck.
But donk.
Dumper
He had
chump.
an ice cream truck.
Oh, he had a dump. That's for sure.
I mean, if you're giving me the opportunity to choose between a dump truck and a flat piece of crap, I'm gonna choose the big fat dumper. He had dumps like a truck. Thighs like what?
What?
Ötzi, move your butt. I think I'll sing it again.
This is just me getting your hopes up because it's not true. He was actually very skinny.
Why would you do this to me? You
Zach,
know how much I love big old dump trucks.
Zach.
Well, you know, I'm sorry. I just wanted to get you guys thinking about, the possibilities.
Thank you.
No, all I'm thinking about is hot, juicy asses right now on Frozen Iceman.
And Cisco.
And Cisco.
Now think about tiny shriveled asses and also the rest of a man.
Yeah, now
Man,
think
man.
about a very skinny 45-year-old man.
Italian man.
A 45-year-old Italian
From
man.
Ireland.
No, Italy didn't exist.
You said they found him in Italy.
Well, yeah, current day Italy, but when he was alive, he didn't stand here and be like, I'm so glad to live in Italy. He spoke a language that doesn't exist anymore and called it a place that has been long forgotten.
Rome will never
Hey, I'm
fall.
Ötzi the Iceman. Hey,
what's the matter you? And oh, it's so cold.
Oh, the Colosseum. It looks so beautiful. in this time
oh,
of
I'm
day
so
from the
cold.
mountains.
So, based on reconstructing what he would have looked like when he was alive, he was about 5'2". He was a short little guy.
Short
he
No, he's just a
he
little
was
guy.
a short king. He was in his mid-40s. He had a U.S. size 8 shoe. He had brown eyes, Mediterranean skin tone, and type O blood.
That's my size
Ooh.
shoe.
That's some good blood.
What was his zodiac sign?
I don't think we can tell that.
He definitely has the tendencies of Capricorn.
O
Mhm.
blood is the universal donor, right?
Yes. Right? Oh, I,
I
wanna
think
say
that's right.
yes.
Pretty sure that's right.
Yeah. Boom. You just got dumped on by us.
Boom. So I want to keep talking about his body, and the things that we've learned about kind of his state of health when
And
he
his
died.
lack of
So-
a dump truck.
and his lack of a dump truck. So I'm going to give you 2 dumps and a chump. I'm going to go from one right into the other. 2 dumps and a chump. So I've got 3 options. One of them is incorrect.
Okay.
So pick the wrong one. So is it A, Ötzi had the oldest known case of heart disease? B, Ötzi had the oldest known case of diabetes? Or C, Ötzi had the oldest known case of Lyme disease?
Diabetes, all the way.
Lyme disease, because Italians don't do good with limes.
God
that-
damn it. Why do you
is
make
that
me
a
change my
true-
answer every fucking time? Okay, it's Lyme disease.
Also, Lyme disease doesn't have anything to do with limes, but okay.
Yeah, but when you're in the mountains, you get ticks.
You fool,
cause Lyme
following
disease.
Beau to your ultimate demise.
Yeah, I know. It's like that American Dad episode where Steve's hanging out with that British kid, and the British kid keeps telling him to do stupid things, but he keeps doing them because his accent sounds
Because
cool.
his
That's
accent.
essentially what's happening here. 'Cause he's like, oh, you should do this. And he's like, I don't know, that sounds like a good idea. But that accent, though, like anytime that Beau says anything, I'm like, well, Lyme disease.
So you were ultimately correct for the Andrew. Your first guess was right.
Oh, fuck. I
He
did.
did.
Me.
He did not have diabetes, but he did have heart disease and Lyme disease.
Oh, fuck.
And a litany of other things.
Oh,
so,
by the way, I was trying to guess the right answer. That's where I fucked up at.
I said it so many times. I said so many times.
You know, Beau doesn't listen. He's thinking about Irishmen and New York and Italian frozen men
He's thinking
with dump
about
trucks.
Irishmen with fat asses.
And eating macaroni.
And Bane.
And beans? Oh, and Bane.
Bane.
Okay. What would Irish
fuck.
Bane sound like talking about asses and macaroni?
I would love to hear what this sounds like. Beau, take it away.
Irish Bane talking about macaroni?
Yeah.
So you like macaroni?
That's just bad. That's just Bane.
It's just there's nothing Irish there.
I can't
What
do
a
Irish-
macaroni! It's hard to do
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I see.
Fine,
It's
fine.
hard.
I'll do
macaroni.
Irish Bane. It's more Sean Connery. So Irish. I got nothing. I lost it.
Or shiny tiny, Mr. Batman.
I'm getting some weird looks right now coming from the
Oh
other
my
room.
god.
See, my favourite number is 33.
My favorite number is
I love how you can't get any of this out. It's so funny. My favorite number is 33. No, it just sounds weird. I don't know what the fuck that was.
You gotta put your hands over your mouth. So it sounds
like you're wearing
a mask.
so they want to burn. She's like doctor. She's in the Italian ices. I was
Oh my
melted
God.
and frozen in it. I didn't see the light. I was already mad and I was already dissected.
I'm from Ireland, you say.
Okay. So back on track. Although I loved that this was a top tier tangent, I think.
The
But-
last 2 top tier tangents have been just Beau doing Bane impressions. So I think we should change the format of this podcast to Beau doing Bane impressions.
Here's the thing about Beau, is that-
I'll speak in Bane.
Beau's Bane
2 drops
impression
and a
is
chop, you
simultaneously
say.
the best thing I've ever heard and the worst thing I've ever heard, which makes it the best thing I've
oh my
heard
God,
twice.
Beau, I swear, the next Upper Decker you do should be on Batman villains, aka only Bane.
I could do that.
Yeah, tell me all about Bane.
Dialect
I don't know
all the
anything
time.
about Bane, and you must speak like him the entire time.
So Bane was a Batman villain.
Okay, Zach, take us away before we get too far.
Okay. So overall, Ötzi was a pretty unhealthy guy at the time of his death. Although I'm pretty sure that if we had our bodies gone over with a fine tooth comb like Ötzi's, I'm sure that none of us would come out particularly.
And we
looking
lived at a
too
time
great.
without like healthcare and like, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's because remember you said before,
Medicine.
like once you get past the age of 30 something, back then you're essentially ancient.
Well, once you made it past like 12 years old, you were pretty much expected to live about as long as people do now. But if you got sick or something, you were fucked. But like if you didn't get too sick, like you could reasonably expect to live at least into your 50s or 60s. You know, unless you got a really nasty injury or an infection or something like that. And in
Or
which
fell
case
into an
there was-
ice hole.
or
Lyme
fell into an
disease.
ice hole. So he was lactose intolerant. He had arteriosclerosis, which is the hardening of the arteries. He was genetically predispositioned to that because we've sequenced his genome. We know all about his genes. He had cavities, gallstones, just like me. He had intestinal
Sorry.
parasites, so he was infected
Just
with
like me.
whipworm.
Just like me.
Oh,
You guys don't have it, parasites.
He had Lyme disease, frostbite. Previously in the past, his ribs and nose were broken and those were healed. His 12th rib was missing because of a weird genetic mutation that happens sometimes in people that I didn't know about. He had symptoms of past malnutrition, probably caused by a severe illness that he made it through. And probably had a lot of knee, hip, shoulder, and back pain because his knee, hip, shoulder, and back joints were all goofed up. And that was why that's one of the theories for why he had the tattoos, like we talked about last episode, is that they were from like what's the word for it when you get poked?
Acupuncture?
Acupuncture. That's all.
Oh.
And
Interesting.
then on top of all of that, the position he died in, and then the subsequent thousands of years of getting ground around by a glacier squished his body into a very uncomfortable looking position and moved around a lot of his organs. Though
Well, he
without
was
much
dead, though,
damage,
at that
they
point,
just
right?
got
Though,
squished
so-
around. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it took them a very long time to find his stomach, which is kind of funny. And actually, the way that they found his stomach was that they were doing a scan and they found his gallstones, and they were like, "Oh, this is where the gallbladder is. The stomach's right next to it. Oh, that's where the stomach is. That's not where that's supposed to be." So that's kind of funny.
Ugh, gross. I hate that.
Um, and then another fun fact is that the previous evidence of malnutrition are these deep grooved lines that show up on your fingernails, and they're called Beau's lines because they
Beau?
were.
It's Beau's lines in it anyway.
That's what happens when you only eat mac and cheese, specifically during podcasts.
I finished that before the podcast started this time.
This
Do you
time.
have lines on your fingernails?
How's that
do.
mac and cheese?
People get that when they go through chemotherapy. They get lines on their fingernails from where they're not getting the nutrition and they're getting the poison from the medicine that's healing them.
Now I'm sad from people who have cancer. Thanks, Ash.
I'm sorry.
Well, Ötzi didn't have cancer. Let's talk about what he did have. And that's a lot of stuff.
Diabetes. Oh,
No, he did not have that.
That was the only
talked
thing
about
he
this.
didn't have.
I know. Just keep going. Keep going.
And he
Keep
didn't
going.
have cancer, so that's nice.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so now I'm going to list off the stuff that he was found with. And
So much
this was
student
all.
debt, dude. He had so much student debt.
He was drowning. Which
He was freezing.
He was freezing.
So he.
wasn't freezing
Uh,
just like above drowning, right?
It's
Your eyes-
advanced drowning.
It's yeah.
It's just a different state, you know? It's just
Yeah,
like
see?
a different side of the same coin.
This is advanced drowning.
This is your normal
um,
drowning. It's advanced drowning.
So he had the frame, a wooden frame to a backpack, but the backpack itself is gone. And so
You had a
it's,
backpack? That's fucking cool.
yeah. So a lot of the stuff was probably kept in his backpack or on his person.
So it was like a
but-
little wooden frame piece that he probably had like a some sort of canvas or
Yeah, it was probably bark. Is the theory that I read. It was
Oh,
based
that's
on
cool.
based on like the traditional lifeways in the area. Like, people have been using these bark backpacks for years and years and years.
that's awesome.
They didn't
And
call them
so-
bark packs. I'm sorry.
He'll be here all night, folks. He'll be here all night.
And so this like bark like backpack is one of the only things that didn't actually preserve. Anyway, so he had a woven grass cloak. He had a fur coat, a leather belt, leather leggings and a leather loincloth. And he was only found with one shoe on his body, but they found the other shoe. So he did have two shoes. And,
In his stomach.
And so his shoes were actually really complex to the point where somebody who studies ancient shoes is pretty convinced that whatever community he was from had like a dedicated cobbler who just made shoes because they were like waterproof and made of like multiple pieces of leather stitched together.
5,000 years ago? That's fucking dope.
What do you do?
Yeah,
for
it's
work?
pretty sweet.
I study ancient shoes.
What do you think of these? Those are shoes. Good job.
Sure are shoes. And
Seems like they would protect your feet.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they were stuffed with grass as like insulation and to like prevent chafing. And then the laces were made out of aurochs leather, which is pretty cool because the aurochs is the descendant of modern day cows and it's extinct now.
I was going to make a joke. I was like, that's my favorite Dr. Seuss novel.
That I'll allow it. That's fine.
Thank you.
I mean, well, Dr. Seuss has been canceled since then, but you know that you can still make the joke.
Did they full on have laces, or was it like a rope tied around the whole foot?
It was rawhide string made out of aurochs leather.
Yeah, but did it go
aurochs hide.
like modern day laces, or was it like you tied it around your ankle? Do you know how it was affixed? If you don't, that's fine. That's okay.
No, I don't know.
They actually had a logo on the side of the shoes too. They were Air Ötzis.
Well, there's a company that actually made a
Nice.
replica
Good
of
one.
them.
Good one.
So it's kind of like the toe cap of the shoe is like one piece, and then it's laced onto this like the like a frame for the rest of the foot that's made out of like a hemp, well, not hemp, but a rope type of situation.
Let's see, blazing that.
Ötzi Force Ones. Is that better?
I liked Ötzis.
Yeah, Air Ötzis is good.
Okay.
We're rocking it
Got
on
that.
Ötzi Force Ones.
So the next thing he's got is and the fur coat was made out of like goat and sheep fur mixed together. So then he had a cap made of bear skin.
That's pretty freaking cool. I want
It's
a bear
pretty
skin
rad.
cap, kind of.
Which means he killed the bear at some point.
Or found it.
Mhm.
He killed the bear.
Yeah. Or like his village all got together and killed a bear. Somebody killed a bear at some point and he got the hat out of
Ötzi
it.
Fox.
Or I mean, how many hats do you think you can make out of bear skin? Probably a lot.
At least
Yeah,
one.
maybe somebody else in the village killed a bear and was like, I'm getting everybody hats.
Well, or it's like,
Maybe
oh,
that's how-
we need these
Sorry, go
pants, we need these hats, we need a couple of shirts, just like what people need. Let's make it. And he was like, I need a hat. They were like, here you go.
I think
Yeah.
Ötzi was on the hunt for another bear because he wanted to finish the ensemble. And then he slipped into the ice thing.
I almost have the
Maybe.
perfect fit.
So close.
So there was a pouch on his belt which had a couple of stone tools in it, a scraper, a drill, just a flake, and then there was a bone awl for hole punching, and some dried fungus that was probably used as a fire starter.
Oh, sweet.
And for people who don't know about stone tools, they're super cool because, like, when you say a scraper, what do you think that means, Andrew and Beau?
A scraper.
Well, it's like something you scrape ice off with, and unfortunately, it didn't work for Ötzi.
If I had to
Frozen.
choose like a scraper, I got nothing. I don't know.
So
It scrapes.
it's like, yeah, it's a little stone tool that you like, because you know how when you make stone tools, you kind of hit the sides off and they get sharp.
I guess.
Yes.
I've never used one.
Have you ever
You've
seen
seen
the
him
video
before.
of being made?
You just take a rock and make it into a sharper rock, right?
By hitting it with another rock.
Oh my god.
Rocks.
Yeah.
It's like Inception.
And so, yeah, you like make one side sharp so you can scrape stuff with it. And like,
I
there's
use
a
the
bunch of different
stones to sharpen the
types.
stones. I'm sorry.
Ötzi's ahead of his time, man.
He was essentially Thanos.
Or Bane.
Basically, it's
Damn it.
these,
So they're just different shapes of stone tools that he.
yeah.
that he-
Okay,
Essentially,
okay,
it's just
well,
different shapes of stone tools.
So
And he
what
also
was
had
the shaper used for? Sorry, the scraper used for? It's for
scrape-
making other tools?
No, so the scraper itself is usually used. It's basically a very flat. It's a flat stone flake with a very wide edge, and it's essentially used to scrape all of the viscera off of a hide before you prepare it and stuff like that.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, cool.
Zach and
Carry
I
on.
took a class in grad school where we made our own stone tools by hand, and then we used them to butcher a deer, and it was awesome.
You actually butchered a real deer?
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a hunter. There's a lot of deer on the campus that we went to, and they were a menace. And so the government was like, "Hey,
They
hunters,
were
you
a
can hunt.
menace.
You can hunt here." And so somebody donates them to the class, thankfully, which is very kind. And we
Yeah, I
still
was
have
gonna
the
say,
deer
that's
skin for
a-
when Zach did it.
Yeah,
That's
I
good. That's good
immediately
eating.
I immediately called dibs on the hide. Like as soon as we like weeks before we were going to do the butchering, I was like, I hope you all know that I'm getting the hide and nobody's allowed to nobody's going to contest me on that. And then I spent most of the time scraping the hide so that I could have the best claim to it.
How
just
long
to
did
make
that
sure
take you guys?
nobody- It was a couple of hours. It was about 3 hours for all of us to butcher it. And so like the way that we were doing it was to kind of not only to learn about how each like type of tool was used, but also to see like how this use left wear on the tools so that we could like recognize that when we found them in the field. And so like we were recording like, oh yes, tool 12 was being used to scrape the hide for 45 minutes. And like we kept all of those records, and then we like looked at them under a microscope to see
and
like,
these
oh
are
yeah,
the
it, like,
differences I saw pre and post use.
so that was a pretty fun day.
Okay.
Anyway, and so Ötzi had
Anyway.
stone tools that he made, presumably.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that he made for these sorts of things. He also had a tool. He had a tool for making those tools called a retoucher, which was basically a piece of antler which had a burned. It was a stick that had a hole drilled into it, and in that hole was put burned antler that was like really hard, and that's used for making really fine pressure flaking. It's called for breaking off pieces of
detail
stone.
work.
Yeah, that detail work.
Okay.
He also had a copper axe with a wood handle. So it was basically just a big piece of sharpened copper attached to a yew wood handle. He had a flint bladed knife, which was pretty much on its last legs. He had a quiver of arrows. There were 14 arrows. 2 of them were finished. The rest of them were unfinished. He had an unfinished bow, and he had tools to make the bow. To make the arrows. So like the retoucher that I was just talking about. Then he had birch baskets, berries, and mushrooms, including a species of mushroom which is often used for medicine. It has antiseptic properties. And then there was a stone disc on a string, which, according to the Iceman Museum, was a tool that you would use to hang dead birds from while you were hunting birds. So you'd like put it on your belt and then hang dead birds from it.
Bird belt.
Oh, okay.
That would be helpful if birds were real, but they're not.
They work
Yeah,
for the
that's true.
bourgeoisie.
So there's a lot of really interesting stuff kind of going on with the equipment, and there's just so much that you can learn about what kind of person he was and where he was from by like a deep study of all of the stuff that he has. But the most important thing, and the one that really struck everybody's eye and that everyone wants to talk about, is that copper axe. And so this copper axe is really, really rare and would have been extremely valuable. And so like at the time when Ötzi was found, the discovery of this copper axe pushed back the beginning of the Copper Age in Europe. Like we thought that they didn't start working with copper until hundreds or even like 1,000 years after this date. And so like he is such an early adopter of copper technology that like it pushed back the concept of when Europeans were using copper, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, that's the sensational headline that like everything that has to do with history wants to say. It's always like, it changes everything we know about this topic. And usually that's not true. Usually it is just sensationalism. But in this case, it was true. That's awesome.
It was true.
It's like with the tattoos last time where they were like, we thought it was only women. Oh shit, we found a man with tattoos. It's like, oh dang, this copper's wicked old.
Ötzi's
No, it
breaking
is-
ground with his scraper and copper.
Yeah. It is worth mentioning, just to get it out there, that the people in North and South America, I think just in South America, but maybe also North and South America, had already been mining and using copper for tools at this point. They started it first, but they just never did it to the scale that Europeans ended up doing it. But that's kind of irrelevant. So back to the
So-
copper axe.
Oh, so I was going to say, we've been talking about tools for 15 minutes now. I would like to know what was an Ötzi stomach, please.
Okay, let me finish
gonna
talking
get
about the
there. We're
axe,
gonna
and
get
it's
there.
literally
I
the
need
next.
to
It's
know.
literally it's the next thing in my notes. I just want to finish talking about the axe so that we can do like equipment all at once, and then we can start talking about his gut health. So the copper axe was it was cast from a mold, and they can tell that from like the basically like the there's some imperfections in it that are indicative of mold casting. And it's 99.7% pure copper, which is, I mean, it's very pure copper. It's not, and so it would have been extraordinarily valuable at the time. It's led researchers to theorize that he was either a smith or someone super important who would have been able to, like, you know, buy the axe, or just like, you know, you would have to be an important person to have one of these axes, or you'd have to be the person who makes them. And so the Smith theory was originally lent credence by the fact that when they studied his hair, they found copper particles and arsenic in his hair. And arsenic is a byproduct of the copper smelting process. This was later, like, we got more studies from like more hair samples from around that time, and it turns out that it was not an exceptional amount of arsenic and copper, but more indicative of maybe somebody who like lived in the same town that it was being smelted.
It was
Yeah, you
his
gotta
best
walk
friend.
past the
It was
coppersmith every day.
Yeah, Ötzi's best friend worked at the coppersmith, and he would always stop by on his way before a bear hunt just to hang out with old Beau, give me a name.
Gabagool.
Gabagool. He was like, go hang out with his friend Gabagool on his way for a bear hunt, and then be like, oh, you know, you got arsenic in my hair. Well, see you later.
So a fun thing about metal is that you can every sort of source of metal has its own composition for that metal. So like obviously copper is an element, but deposits of copper ore have traces of other elements within them, and these are going to be in unique proportions for each source of metal. So if you can get an accurate reading of these trace elements, you can match a metal object to the source that it came from if you've like measured the elements at that source. So based on that, they found out that the copper for Ötzi's axe came from Tuscany, which is on the western coast of Italy. It's where Florence is, which is pretty far from the Alps in terms of how Italy is. Then studies of the strontium isotopes in his teeth, this is a whole other thing. But basically, when you're growing up, the strontium isotopes from the water source that you drink from get they basically become integrated into the enamel in your teeth, and so and then they're sealed in the enamel and they never change. So you can figure out where somebody was born by testing the strontium isotopes. Well, not where they were born, but where they were like 3 or 4 years old when the like permanent teeth were forming. Yeah, so you can figure out where they were drinking water from by matching the strontium isotopes in the tooth enamel to strontium isotopes from known water sources. And so based on that,
where did they find that? Yeah.
So based on that, they found out that he was from a part of the Alps called the Isac Valley, which is on the eastern side of the Alps. So basically, it's about 250 miles away from Tuscany, where the copper was found, was sourced from, and with basically a whole fucking mountain range in between.
So that's some exotic shit that he had. If it's 250 miles away, that's far as fuck back then. So that's some important shit.
He was going up and down those mountains. He was a mountaineer, especially based on the wear of his like legs. His leg bones were actually proportioned differently than most people from that time period, which is a thing that can happen if you are walking up and down mountains from a young age.
And fighting bears.
Interesting.
And fighting bears.
Don't forget the bear.
Do you think that do you not think the Smith theory then? You just think that he was someone important?
Yeah.
He seems important. Like he's wearing bear hats and shit. Like he's fucking hucking up and down mountains. Like he's a badass bitch. Like I think that he was definitely someone important.
So based on the pollen, dust grains, and isotopic composition of his tooth and enamel, he spent his childhood near the present South Tyrol village of Feldthurns, north of Bolzano, but later went to live in valleys about 50 kilometers farther north. So he had a lot of mobility throughout his life. And I don't know if that was something unique to him or if people back then were just a lot more mobile than we think they were.
Is that all in Italy where he resided, or was that like halfway between Italy and then some in Austria?
I think I need to look at a map to compare all of this, so I don't want to say something inaccurate, but I think it's all in Italy.
If you say one thing that's inaccurate, that's totally cool, because Beau and I have been saying inaccurate shit this entire time.
And we'll continue.
But like
to say
that's your
inaccurate
gimmick,
shit
so it's
until
okay.
over.
Chumpty Dumpty here. We've got 3 options. Pick the correct one. What was Ötzi's last meal?
Chumpty Dumpty. So one of them is right.
Yes, one of them is correct.
Okay,
I believe he said Chumpty Dumpty.
I did say Chumpty Dumpty.
Yeah, so I said, right?
Yeah,
Did I not say
Oh,
that?
I thought you said Humpty Dumpty.
Oh no, Chumpty
Never
Dumpty.
mind.
No, Jumpty Dumpty.
Hit me with them meals.
Okay. Was it a Neolithic trail mix made of dried silphium fruit and peanuts? Was it a mixture of bread, tomato sauce, and cheese? Or was it a mix of dried ibex and deer meat and einkorn wheat?
Okay. Sidebar.
Sidebar.
Food sidebar.
Yeah, ooh, I'm hungry now. I wish it was macaroni and cheese.
Hey, can
So,
I join your sidebar?
Yeah, get on.
Do you not
in
know
here.
this?
I mean, I do know it, but I'm going to pretend like I don't. And I just want to be
Okay.
a part of this sidebar.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, get in here. Come on, get on. There's
get on.
room for everybody.
Okay, great. Okay.
Not for Zach though. He's
I'm not sure how I feel about this.
Get out, Zach.
So okay, the second one has to be a trick, right? Because he's essentially just explained what pizza was.
Or a
The first
calzone.
one, or a calzone, or a pizza cone that they're making now, which obviously he wouldn't have then because they didn't have cones back then. The first
The
one,
cone is a
trail
modern
mix.
invention.
Yeah.
Trail mix would make sense because if you're going hiking, you need trail mix.
But
'cause there's
ironically,
trails.
he was on the trail.
Yeah,
I
trail.
mean, if he
And
was
then
mountaineering and he's eating trail mix.
he's mountaineering, he's on the trail, and then maybe he ran out of trail mix and then lost the trail and then fell into an ice hole.
Oh,
the trail mix helps you find the trail. I didn't know that
Yeah.
about trail mix.
Oh yeah, I'm a big hiking guy, and every time I don't have trail mix, I get lost, and then they have to call in the helicopters. It's a whole thing. I'm wildly in debt. So, do you know that you get charged for that if like a helicopters come pick you up? Like you have to pay for that shit.
Unless
Just let
you've
it go
got
to collections.
lost in the woods insurance, right?
Which I think no one has except for like Bear Grylls.
Can you just say it was a
Mhm.
crime? Can you be like, oh, some crazy man took me here and dropped me in the middle of and then left me. It wasn't my choice.
Maybe.
possibly.
I mean, that you could try, but like someone has to pay for it, so you could blame it on somebody.
Mhm. And they
What was the last one, Zach? Some sort of meat.
Yes, it was a mix of dried ibex and deer meat and einkorn wheat. It's
So
an
we had
ancient
deer
wheat.
jerky and granola.
Okay, Beau, if you had to pick between deer jerky and granola for going on a hike or just a super dope trail mix going on a hike, what would you pick?
Deer jerky.
I know you'd pick jerky because I've seen you eat so much jerky. I know you love jerky. I also love jerky, and I always follow you, so let's go with that one. I know it's wrong.
Nope, that was the right one.
Oh
did
my
it.
God.
Oh, Bob, here
Fucking
we go.
Beau.
Jerky
Deer
wins
jerky.
every time.
You got it.
I love jerky too.
That's a great
So
snack
what's
for
this?
hiking. You got some protein. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Ötzi was such a fucking visionary, dude.
He was so ahead of his time. Ötzi, man. I just keep on.
So they
Ötzi.
found it in his stomach, which means that he ate it a relatively short time before he died. And they were able to, based on a microscopic analysis of the meat, they could figure out that it had never been cooked and instead was dried, which I think is cool.
That's pretty fucking cool.
Jerky.
So were they able to do like carbon dating or whatever, like to find anything about the meat that was in his stomach, or like what kind of species of animal or like exact species of animal that shit was, or does it even matter?
And deer.
Yeah, it was
Like, what was
ibex
its
and
name?
deer. The ibex is a species.
Yeah,
I don't-
what was its name? Just make some shit up.
Dave.
Why is that so funny? No,
Thanks
Dave
for
the
your
Ibex.
sacrifice, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
What a good guy.
Ötzi
Yeah.
ate your meat and then died after.
Yeah. Well, so the Ibex actually got revenge at the end.
And then the fact that it was einkorn wheat is really interesting as well, because einkorn is a cultivar of wheat. So we know that whatever whatever place that he was from was agricultural. So they were growing crops.
They were farming this shit. This isn't something he found in the wild. They were making it happen.
Fuck
Mhm.
yeah.
We also know from his gut, we know about the time, we basically know about the journey of the couple of days leading up to his death. So when he was eating his previous meals before his last one, some pollen got into the food and he ate the pollen. And so there's pollen in his intestines. And pollen, you can look at pollen and tell what species of plant it came from. So you know what altitude he was at based on what plants grow at those altitudes. And there was also pollen in his clothes. And then the presence of this pollen also means that he died in the spring, like late spring, early summer. And we know that in the days before he died, he was going up and down the mountains. He was like not just like on an uphill trek, he was going up and down. And like we were just talking about, he was the kind of guy who did a lot of walking. The tibia, femur, and pelvis were worn and proportioned in a way that would suggest that. So based on this other stuff.
Do you think if you put him on flat ground, he leaned over a little bit?
I think so. I would wager. Like maybe leaned forward a little or leaned back, depending on if he was an uphill guy or a downhill guy.
You got to do both if you're mountain climbing.
Oh, yeah. So maybe that means he was perfectly balanced.
Oh, as all things are.
Oh, it always goes back to Thanos.
So based on this mobility and the fact that his last meal was ibex meat, which is a type of alpine goat, there was goat fur as part of his clothing, has led a lot of people to the dominant theory for what he was is a shepherd. And, maybe shepherds were in high status
Is that why they named the
in
pie
his
after him?
hometown.
Yes,
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. He also had shepherd's pie in his tummy. That's why they named it after
Well,
him.
I mean, just because he had the copper axe didn't make him a smith. Why does having the goat clothes and the goat meat mean that he's a goat shepherd? Especially when you know that there were specialties in this community, like the guy who made shoes or whatever. Like, why,
Yeah,
You
and
can
like
presume there was a guy who made
they
clothes.
found him encased in ice. He wasn't an ice cream salesman, nor David Blaine.
I mean, it could be that he was like, a local leader, and maybe he spent so much time in the mountains going up and down because he was traveling to other towns for like diplomacy or something like that.
I mean, it makes sense that you would chase a herd of goats up and down a mountain a couple of, every once in a while.
Maybe. It could also be that maybe he was a shepherd earlier in his life, and we don't know. We have no idea how the social, like,
That's true.
the social system of his hometown. So it could be that like everyone loved the shepherd and elected him leader at some point. Anyway,
This seems like wild speculation at this.
this is absolutely
moment.
wild speculation. This is wild speculation.
Remember
He was
when we
the
were talking
leader
about
of
how
all
this
of
happens?
Yeah.
pre-Italy.
So let's talk about something that's not wild speculation. How did he die?
Ice.
I've got. I don't know.
He was
I don't know.
really fucking cold.
He
So-
forgot his bear blanket.
So I've got a 2 dumps and a chump. I've got a 2 chumps and a dump here. So this is. I'm going to give you 3 options. One of them is correct.
You can only die one way.
You
It's
can only
true.
die one way. So
It's
how
true.
did Ötzi die? He was a willing sacrifice. He was murdered, or he was in a hiking accident and fell off a cliff into a glacier.
Okay, sidebar. Ash, do you know this?
Sidebar.
I do. I'm going to refrain from this sidebar. Thank you for the inclusion in the last one.
You're very welcome. You may join us anytime. Zach is still he's on probation for the dentist episode where he held us hostage. So
Zach and I are in our own sidebar. We're doing it right
The
now. You can stop us.
Mm.
oh my God, you are in the same room, so I literally can't stop you. So
Watch me. I'll stop. I'm on my way.
the
one
last
plate,
episode,
please?
the last episode, Beau, I remember them saying something about someone being murdered because we were talking about tattoos and nature's tattoos, but I can't remember if that was Ötzi
know,
or the
but
sand burial
we don't
one.
even
I think it was
think
actually the
about that.
sand burial one.
I think we don't even think about that though, because this murder just is the answer anyway.
Well, but also real quick, Zach, a sand burial is when you
So
when
when
you
you
put
buried
somebody
them
in
in
some
the sand,
sand,
I remember.
It's
and
when
then
you
you
bury them in the
cover
sand.
them with sand.
Yeah, he
I
knows. It was his
learned. And
favorite.
you
It was the
bury
favorite
them.
thing he learned.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. I just
I
want
learned
to
that.
double check.
too.
So I don't think that the murder is right because I think it was the sand burial one, and they would have probably mentioned that if he was murdered, they also would have mentioned it there. So I want to say option C. However, if you want to say B, I'll follow you into the dark.
How about this time I follow you?
Okay, so we're going with fell off of a cliff.
Is that your final answer?
Fell off of a cliff. Yes.
That's not right. I'm sorry.
Was he
Is it
murdered? I
murder?
swear to God, if he was murdered.
He was murdered.
Oh my
He
God.
was
See what happens when I don't follow you, Beau? See what
I
happened?
know,
He was murdered.
I know.
I'm so sorry.
He was buried
I'm so sorry.
in sand, ice
It's
sand.
buried in ice sand.
So
He was murdered.
about
What? Hold on. Scandal of the century.
yeah, so
Call
he
the
was
fucking
murdered.
cops.
The
What
CT scans that were a CT scan that was done about 10 years after he was found revealed an arrowhead embedded in his shoulder.
Oh shit. That's fucking
Really
hardcore.
close to his lungs. Yeah, it went into his shoulder, and I think it deflected off of his shoulder blade and ended up really close to his lungs. And so
Damn.
it was a wound that would be pretty quick to kill you even today. It was very fatal. So in addition to that, he also had bruises and cuts on his hands, wrist, and chest, including a super intense cut on one of his thumbs that went down to the bone, and hadn't had much of a chance to heal yet. And he had cerebral trauma, so trauma to his head that was consistent with getting his bell rung
He done got
pretty hardcore.
bonked.
Jesus
He got
Christ.
bonked.
He done
Was
got
this like a
bonked.
fucking like they ganged up on him and like beat the shit out of him and shot him with an arrow? Because it sounds like it.
It's entirely possible. So basically, based on the wounds and like how healed they were, it seems like he got into a pretty nasty fight 24 to 48 hours before he died.
Let's see. What are
That was
you
where
doing,
he got the
buddy?
hand bruises and the scratches and stuff.
So
Maybe
he
the
okay,
bong.
That's where he got those
here's what happened. Ötzi was in a bar, and he went in there
in the
and
middle
he was
of
like,
the Alps.
he was like, "Yo, my name is Ötzi, and I'm here to fucking party." And he ordered his favorite drink, which was the Italian ice. I don't know.
The avalanche.
The avalanche thing. Yeah, it's when you drop in a shot glass full of ice water into more ice water. So then he started. He got shitty with somebody who was giving him the side eye, and he fought him. And then they followed him into the mountains and shot him with an arrow and bonked him on the head with a club. It was a comical bonk when it hit too. It was like bonk.
So basically, based on the pollen that was found on his clothes and everything, it seems like he started off at a high altitude, went down to a lower altitude, not like ground level, but like mountain valley level. There he got into the fight, and then he went back up into the mountains, where he eventually was shot in the back with the arrow and bled out.
Buddy.
So he got into the fight, he escaped. That's when he ate one of his meals, was shortly after the fight, then retreated up into the mountains. Then it seems like a lot of his tools had been recently reshaped before his death. So maybe like he broke a knife in the fight and was trying to like sharpen it back up again. And maybe his arrows were broken at the fight, or he was like scavenging the materials to make the bow and arrow to like try and prepare for these guys who ganked him.
And
to,
you said
like,
that his
come back and take him out?
knife. Sorry. You said that his knife was pretty worn down, right? Like he had retouched it a lot of times and it was getting low on material.
Yeah, it was in pretty rough shape. The article that I read said that it was like pretty much at the point where if he could retouch it maybe one more time before like it became unusable. Then after he retreated up into the highlands is when
It's like
he
those
ate.
kids who have those pocket knives that they've had for like 15 years. It's just their rusty pocket knife. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So that's when he ate the deer jerky, and then he got shot shortly after. And whoever shot him,
buddy.
went into his body and broke off probably trying to get the arrowhead out, but it was like embedded in his bone, I think. But the shaft broke off, and so the shaft of that arrow was not found.
Today on Unsolved Mysteries, Ötzi the Iceman.
It seems like that really leans towards the murder theory for me, is the fact that they tried to. It seems like they tried to hide the crime by removing the arrow.
If I know anything about murder,
he still had his axe.
Yeah. Oh, and we know the reason why we know that he was actually wearing his clothes when he died and he didn't die naked is that his coat had a hole in it where the arrow went through.
So I've watched a lot of murder porn, investigative murder porn. It's always the spouse. So
was that married?
Get him.
There's no way of knowing.
Can you ask?
I'll ask next time.
Carbon date. His wedding finger.
Next time I'm in Italy, I'll go ask.
Good.
Because if you're killing someone and you're trying to cover up your crime, and you're trying to, maybe they weren't trying to cover up their crime and they're just trying to reclaim their arrows. You know, in video games, you're like, that's my only arrow. I got to get that back.
Mm-hmm.
But then you don't take the ones that he has that are already in progress, or like the 2 that are finished, and you don't take his dope axe. Like, that's
and
not
they
robbery,
didn't take the axe. Them not taking the axe is a really interesting part of it as well, because that's what implies to me personally that the person who murdered him may have been somebody from the same town as him, because if they came back rocking Ötzi's axe, then people would know where they got that axe from.
They're like, where'd you get that shit? And be like, internet.
What are you doing with Ötzi's axe, that rare axe from 250 miles away that only one guy has?
Oh, shit.
Oh, he let me borrow it. Yeah. Ötzi, a good friend of mine. Hope he comes back.
I'm holding it for a friend.
So I have seen people who have theorized that he was a willing sacrifice, but the official Ötzi researchers, the people who work at the museum, don't agree with that theory.
Well, they're idiots.
And so the main
it's a hypothesis at best.
Oh, cool.
And so the main argument for the idea that he was sacrificed is that he was found with the axe, he was found with all of these tools. It would have been unwieldy for him to be carrying all of that stuff while he was on the run through the mountains or whatever, and all the other equipment. But then what kind of negates that for me is if you're going to sacrifice somebody, why would you shoot them at some random point in their back that just happens to be fatal?
Perhaps you're wondering why you would shoot a man before throwing him out the clay.
He's back.
And then if he was being buried with tools, usually the point of a sacrifice is that you're getting rid of something that is useful and valuable. So why would all of his tools be shitty and on their last legs?
Because Ötzi themselves was useful and valuable.
Yeah, but you think they'd give him some new tools before he heads off?
Yeah.
Normally when you see somebody who's been sacrificed, they're buried.
They have the finest of everything.
Yeah, really good stuff that people would actually miss. That's
you don't want to give the gods
sacrifice.
your bullshit. Your gods don't want your garbage.
That's funny.
I've got a couple of bonus notes for some other ice mummies with interesting stories if you want to hear about that, if we want to go over. But otherwise, we can call it there.
How far over?
15 minutes tops.
Oh, that's too far.
I don't even think it would be that much. One of them is about a pair. It's a trio of children.
Oh, wait, here, real quick. Tell you what, say them as fast as you can, and we'll see how much we remember of what you just say.
Go and start.
Go.
Okay, so one that I wanted to talk about is the children of Yuyayaco, which is a mountain and the border of Argentina and Chile. It was 3 kids found on the top of the mountain, a 15-year-old girl, a 6-year-old girl, and a 7-year-old boy. They were child sacrifices, which were done by the Inca. They were from various places around the Inca Empire and were probably the children of local leaders. The Inca would would select the children who were the children of local leaders in order to legitimize their rule as well as integrate them into the empire, saying that your children were special enough to speak to the gods and would possibly put some special treatment down on your village. Was a pretty cool thing. Chemical analysis of their bodies indicated they were fed a lot in the time before their deaths. They were fed very rich meals, and they were paraded around the capital city of Cusco as part of a ceremony before their death. Then they were brought up into the mountains with a very long hike. They were fed lots of corn beer and coca leaves, and they were left to die. They were left to die in a sacrificial chamber. The mountaintop is so high up that instead of being frozen in a glacier like Ötzi was, they were frozen dry because they were 20,000 feet above sea level. And they legit looked like they died yesterday, except for the one of them.
Drunk voice.
Except except the one that got struck by lightning because one of the bodies got struck by lightning.
Case.
The next one is from Franklin's Lost Expedition in 1845. He was trying to find the Northwest Passage to shortcut across America
Canadian.
by ship.
Oh,
By going under it instead of going over it instead of going under it, because going under America takes way too long. But he thought you could go over it, and it would take a lot less time to get from the Atlantic to the Pacific.
Main speaking Italian.
But these stupid idiots found the Arctic Circle instead, and they all froze to death because of that, and also because of cascading failures and lead poisoning, which were either from poorly soldered canned food or
Like you
the
just found out that your girlfriend
desalinators.
cheated on you.
Oh my god.
The desalinators that they used for drinking water
that's
poisoned
great.
them with lead. And so the bodies weren't mummified, but from the expedition, but 4 guys who died along the way were buried.
Tommy, why so?
Oh, hi, Mark.
The bodies froze and looked perfect from the outside. Although their insides were apparently liquefied before freezing because the bodies were kept on the ships for a couple of days.
I'm going to be
No one-
honest. I am not retaining any of this information when you're doing the silly voice.
I hope somebody is, because I'm not, but this has been very fun and I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you for this.
Uh,
I appreciate
This is
your
one of the
commitment to the bit. And I
thank
love
you.
for it.
Yeah, it's great.
This has one of the few examples of an ice mummy that had a name. We know one of the guys, his name was John Torrington.
Valley
There
Girl.
are 3 other guys as well. And he died of pneumonia, which was made worse by lead poisoning. And that's everything that I have.
Oh, I love that. That was great. Well done.
It crammed it into like 3 minutes. It was perfect.
I
Do you
love
remember
that.
anything?
Yeah.
There was three siblings that died as sacrifice for the Inca,
Worthy something.
worthy of the
You-
gods or some
you knew that
shit.
guy's name.
Bane showed
There's a
up.
guy named Gibbles McGarvish or something.
Oh,
John
just-
Torrington.
Yeah, that was it.
Thanks for dumping on us, Zach. I had a really good time getting really in depth into Ötzi.
I
Thank
like
you.
Ötzi.
Thank you for
I think
receiving me.
Ötzi's. I want to party with Ötzi. I want to drink avalanches with Ötzi. I want to not die with Ötzi.
I
But
want to know for sure.
Mhm.
Like, I wish I knew. We wish we could know what his whole
I
deal
wish.
was, because
I wish we
Yeah, I really wish I could know what his job was. It'd be interesting to know.
I hope our listeners like listening to the the. I feel like we really got out the microscope on this one. You know, we're
Yeah.
like, well, let's
Yeah.
zoom
Deep
in on
dive.
this little particular topic.
So, Beau,
Ash, what was? Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. That's
I
what
was going to
saying.
say, I was going to start with Beau, because Beau's usually the one who derails it. So you can't derail it if you're the one who starts it, unless you're going to immediately derail it. But hey, Beau, what was your favorite thing that you learned?
That you could do a lot of voices.
That doesn't count.
Yeah, it does.
What was the favorite thing that you learned about Ötzi?
Oh, that he killed bears.
Not true, but I'll accept it.
Okay.
You can't disprove
Well,
that.
I mean, that's true. We can't disprove that. Possibly true, so I'll accept it. All right, Andrew, what was your favorite thing that you learned?
I like almost everything I heard about Ötzi. I like that he eats beef jerky because I do that.
Deer
I-
jerky.
Do you,
goat jerky.
Jerky in general.
Both.
Yeah, I've
The
had
jerky.
many.
Yeah,
I've had many
the jerky.
jerkies. I like that Ötzi was just a normal guy. You know, he had cavities like the rest of us have had before. You know,
Lyme
he had
disease.
Lyme disease like everyone does. He didn't have diabetes, which I think if he would have survived the attacking, he may have gotten it. And then my second favorite thing that I've learned was that Zach does such a good Valley Girl impression. I honestly want you to do that for the rest of your life.
Please.
I
you're
didn't
laughing.
know that Ötzi had shoelaces. That's awesome.
Pretty cool, right? And the shoelaces were made out of aurochs, which I think is pretty rad.
Yeah, I love that.
Beau, right before our bye-byes, do you want to sing one last song about Ötzi before we say bye-bye?
Ötzi was an Irishman who lived in Italy. He hunted bears, he made his own shoveling things as well. He got shot in the back while he was high in Mount Italy. He froze to death and was in sacrifice to the gods. Oh, Ötzi was a friend of mine who got murdered. He tried to live his best life, eating the best jerky he could, until one day he was shot in the back from an arrow who'd almost took his, what was it, his hatchet? What was it? His hatchet?
So sad that you didn't end that with attack. That was so close. You were so
Or
close.
his hat. That almost took
Or
his hat.
It's all right. It's all right. You're learning. You're doing great. That was great. Also, if you could have shoehorned him eating the shoe in there, that would have been 10 out of 10. So I'm going to go 9.5.
Okay. Next podcast. Wait for
All right.
it.
That's all I got. See you guys. Ash and Zach are super smart. They went to college and learned a bunch of stuff. And Beau and Andrew didn't go to college because that's the way life goes sometimes. What happens when you put them together and you try to make them learn? Grab your friends, let's listen together on Get Dumped on an Info Dump podcast. Tune in next Wednesday for the Humpday Dumpday.
Humpday, Dumpday.
Oh, yeah.
New episodes every Wednesday. Pow, pow, pow.
Don't forget to email us at Don't forget to email us.
Message us on Instagram at Get Dumped on Pod.
Use our email for free trials.
Send a letter to
Stop it.
125 Anytown
Stop it.
Street, Anyville, USA.
Stop it.
That was a fake address. Okay, I'm going to stop.